up here with my water guns. If there's any kids out there who want to come up, come on up. You don't have to, but if you want to, come on up. I've got water guns. I'm not going to spray you. Don't worry. Come on up. Where are the kids? No kids today? There's one. There's one. There's one. Good, good, good. Here they come. Okay. Great. Okay, we're going to do a quick story today. You guys want to help me? Okay, at the end of the story, I'm going to ask you one question. I want you to answer, okay? And that's, what can we learn? What can we learn about Jesus from this story? Oh, good. I have lots of kids here. This is great. Okay, first, I need a kid who's kind of in charge and loud to play the part of Jesus. Your name is what? You're going to play the part of Jesus? Okay, here's what I need you to do. Come up here. This is good. You'll be good at this. Go lay down over here and pretend you're asleep. That's good. Yep, that's just like Jesus would lay down. I feel it. Here, you have to memorize 3 words too, okay? Can you do it?
And I want to be an A.
Perfect. Yes, you do that. You need to say, "Peace, be still," when I say, "Don't you care that I'm drowning?" Can you do that? Okay, but you're sleeping. You're taking a nap. Okay, good. Now you guys are going to be the wind and the waves. Can you do that?
Yeah.
I'm going to be the disciples, which means I'm going to get the wind all blown on me. I need somebody to blow the wind. Okay, you're going to blow the wind? Okay, perfect. And then I'm going to need some people to be waves. Okay, here's one. Here's one. Okay. Okay. Yep, just like that. Perfect. Here, you might need to pump that up again. Try and spray me in the face when the time comes, okay? Here comes the story. Are you ready? Jesus said to his followers, he said, "Let's go across to the other side of this lake." And they all got in the boat. And they started to go. And Jesus went to take a nap in the front of the boat with his friend, right? Yeah. And they were having a good time in the front of the boat. And then, after Jesus fell asleep, the wind started to blow. What kind of sound does the wind make? Okay, I can't feel it though. Okay, yeah, now I feel it. That's good. And then after the wind, then the waves started coming and the rain. Oh man, and the disciples started saying, "Jesus, don't you care that I'm drowning?" And Jesus woke up, and what did he say? "Peace be still," and then the rain stopped. After a minute, it took a second for all the rain to get the message. And then the wind stopped. And Jesus said, what? Do you know what Jesus said? He did say, "Peace be still." And then he said, "Why were you so worried? Don't you have any faith?" And then the disciples said, "Who is this that can even tell the wind and the waves to stop?" So what can we learn about Jesus from this story? I don't know. Okay, good. What else? What do you think?
I don't know.
I don't know also. Okay.
My water guns?
Yes, okay. Jesus,
For everyone.
that he cares for everybody. That's true. Good. Anything else? Tell you what.
That's also
Go to
my
Sunday
water
school and see if you can figure out one thing you can learn about Jesus from that story. All right? Okay, wind and the waves. Hand them over. That's my little gift to the that's my gift to the Sunday school teachers. I'll give it back to you after church. Thank you, kids. We'll see you after church for snacks. No, you gotta leave it here.
So now for the rest of the story. Our Old Testament reading this morning is from 1 Kings 19, 1 through 9. Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done and how he had killed all the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah, saying, So may the gods do to me, and more also, if I do not make your life like the life of one of them by this time tomorrow." Then he was afraid. He got up and fled for his life and came to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah. He left his servant there. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a solitary broom tree. He asked that he might die. "It is enough now, O Lord, take away my life, for I am no better than my ancestors." Then he lay down under the broom tree and fell asleep. Suddenly an angel touched him and said to him, "Get up and eat." He looked, and there at his head was a cake baked on hot stones and a jar of water. He ate and drank and lay down again. The angel of the Lord came a second time, touched him, and said, "Get up and eat. Otherwise, the journey will be too much for you." He got up and ate and drank. Then he went in with the strength of that food 40 days and 40 nights to Horeb, the mount of God. At that place he came to a cave and spent the night there. Then the word of the Lord came to him, saying, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" This is the word of our Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Please stand as you're able for the gospel reading. This is the real story. Mark 4:13-41. On that day, when evening had come, he said to them, "Let's go across to the other side." And leaving the crowd behind, they took him with them in the boat, just as he was. Other boats were with them. A great windstorm arose, and the waves beat into the boat, so that the boat was already being swamped. But he was in the stern, asleep on a cushion. And they woke him up and said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" He woke up and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." Then the wind ceased, and there was a dead calm. He said to them, "Why are you afraid? Have you still no faith?" And they were filled with great awe and said to one another, "Who then is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him?" This is the gospel.
Praise to you, Christ Jesus.
I put the water guns away, unfortunately, for all the adults. I wasn't sure you could all be trusted with them. When you think about things that worry you in life, I was looking last night, actually, on a psychology site. What are the things that people most worry about? And what do you think would be on that top 5 list? Money. That was one of the top. I'm surprised you got it so fast. What else? Money? Health. Yeah, health, death, relationships are a big one. Those are the big 3, actually. The ones that most people would say: money, health, relationships. And the other one that is commonly said is something about transition or change. Most of these things have to do with worrying about the future in some way. We're not sure we have enough money to make it through to the next paycheck. We're not sure about our relationships, that those will continue in the way we desire them to. We're not certain that our health will either remain in the way we desire it to be, or that we'll get to the place we desire to be. And then in transition, it can be really painful and difficult, wondering what is to come. And we as a community are in the middle of a bunch of those questions, maybe all of those questions, but especially with Pastor Joyce having just left us, and next week Pastor John is coming, which is a great thing. But I think for many of us, there might be worry or concern or fear. What does that mean? How does that change things? What does that mean for me personally? What does that mean for the church? What does that mean for the program that I love? All these things are all wrapped up, and we're worried and concerned and wondering about them, whether it's our personal lives or our family lives or our church lives. And that's normal. That's ordinary. As we're trying to figure out these things in life. So 2 stories today from Scripture that I thought it'd be good for us to reflect on before Pastor John comes, and with everything else going on in our lives. The first is a story about Elijah, which is from 1 Kings. In this story, Elijah, there's been a drought for years, and then God says the time has come to end the drought. But during that time, the government has been killing all of the prophets of God. There's only a handful left, and only one that they know for sure is still alive, which is Elijah. And he comes to them and says to the false prophets, of whom there are 450, tell you what, let's have a contest. You kill a bull and I'll kill a bull, and we'll put them on the altars, and whichever God answers with fire, that's the true God, and we'll all worship that God. And they say, great idea, let's do that. So he says, you go first. Sure. So they build this altar, and they chop up the bull, and they put it on there, and they all start to dance around it and call to their god, Baal, and say, hey, light this on fire. And Elijah lets them go for a while, like through the morning. And then around noon, he decides that the time has come to do the work of God and to make fun of them. So he comes out, and he starts to say, hey, maybe he's sleeping. Get a little louder. Maybe he went on a journey, and he's kind of far away. And actually, I talked to my rabbi friend, and he said one of them that we usually translate, maybe he's deep in thought. He said, oh, that's a euphemism for maybe he's in the bathroom. So he starts going, hey, maybe he's in the bathroom. Where's your God? He can't hear you. Speak up. Speak. Maybe he has the fan on. Louder. And so they start shouting louder, louder, trying to get him. And remember, this is in the midst of a multi-year drought. He then calls some other people, and he says, okay, you see my bull? Go get 4 big jugs of water and pour it over. I say, okay. So they do that. He says, now do it again. They do it again. He goes, go see if you can find some more water. Do it again. And this is literally, they were scouring the countryside looking for wells and places where there might be a little bit of water so they didn't have to kill their livestock. So this is probably the last of their water. They're pouring it out, pouring it out, pouring it out. And then he just stands up and says, okay, God, let's show them who's the boss. And fire comes down and just completely, the water disappears, and the bull and the altar, everything gone. And everyone says, oh yeah, we'll follow that guy. And then they grab all the false prophets and they kill them all. And then Elijah prays multiple times, and he sees a cloud on the horizon and says, water is coming, the sound of heavy rain is coming. And then the Holy Spirit empowers him, and he runs down the mountain faster than a chariot, it says. And when he gets to the bottom, he hears that this woman, Jezebel, who is part of the government, says, may the gods deal with me severely if by this time tomorrow Elijah is not dead. And then he suddenly goes into this crisis. He's just seen God do this miraculous thing, but he's suddenly filled with worry and fear, and he knows he shouldn't be. And he goes out into the desert, and it says he lays down under a bush, under a tree, a broom tree, and he says, I'm just as bad as all of my ancestors, everyone who came before me. God, you should just kill me. Because here's where I am. I'm worried again. I'm afraid again. And he falls asleep. And then it says, all of a sudden, an angel touched him. And he woke up, and the angel says, the journey is too much for you. The journey to God, to his presence. Eat and drink. So he gets up and he eats the food and he drinks the drink that has been provided to him by the angel, and then he goes back to sleep. He takes another nap, which is a theme. It's in both our stories today. Naps are good, apparently. And then the angel says again, wakes him again and says, eat and drink. The journey is too much for you. He gets up, he eats, and he drinks. And then it says, on the strength of that food, he traveled for 40 days to get to the mountain of God. And there in that mountain, he hid in a cave, and he heard a great wind coming through, a wind so powerful that it could break rocks, but it wasn't the voice of God. And there was an earthquake that shook the entire mountain, but that wasn't the voice of God either. And then a fire that came through and burnt everything, and that wasn't the voice of God. And then he heard a whisper, or sometimes we say the still small voice. And it says he put a hood over his face, and he went out to speak to the Lord. And I think this story is really important for us as we're in places of worry and fear, because it says a couple things that are important. One, Elijah was terrified, even though he had just seen the power and miraculous intervention of God. And he still was afraid. He still was worried. And the angel that comes to him does not say, what is wrong with you? Pull it together. Did you see God send fire from heaven, and now you're worried about the government? No, the angel says, you need to rest. You need to eat. You need to drink and get yourself ready, because the journey from where you are to where God is, you're not ready for it right now. And I think that's so important in moments of transition and change that we remember that the state of our physical body can affect our ability to get to the place where we're hearing from God, to find the place of peace. And that it's okay, that God's not condemning us for that. He's designed us that way. And that God would say to us, eat, drink, take care of yourself, sleep, and prepare yourself for the journey to come. And not to expect that it'll happen to me. Elijah didn't eat and drink, wake up from his nap, and then a bush caught on fire and God spoke to him. He said it took him a journey of 40 days to come to the place where he was able to recognize the voice of God. And I think that's really important for us. Eat, drink, rest, and then journey to find Christ. The second story is the story that we've already done a couple times. Jesus asleep literally on a pillow, according to Mark, just taking a break while a storm is raging all around, and the disciples have come to a place of such worry and fear that they actually think they might die, and they're waking Jesus up just to let him know. Like, hey, you're sleeping, but we're about to die. Just thought you might want to know. And then Jesus, it says he rebukes the storm, which I always wonder what that looks like. Like, hey, cut it out. You know, he gets up and he says, peace, peace, be still. And immediately there was a dead calm. They went from this raging storm that was about to overwhelm them to just calm. And then he says to them, why were you so afraid? Is it because you have so little faith? And I think this is an interesting story too, because in this one we see that God seems not to care, is how it felt to the disciples, I'm sure. Like he's so disengaged in the midst of my trouble that he's not responding. In fact, he's asleep. I don't know about you, but I've definitely had moments where I've been worried and afraid and felt like God's just not answering. That I'm telling him everything, that I'm trying to engage, and he's just off taking a nap in the boat somewhere. But what Jesus says when he does come to them, it just takes a word for him to stop this all. You thought I was unaware. You thought I was disengaged. I just have to say peace, and there's peace. Why were you afraid? Did you think I wasn't engaged? Did you think I didn't care? I think that question really is a diagnostic question. He's saying to them, what was it that made you afraid? You know who I am. You know my power. You know I care for you. What was it that made you afraid? Was it your faith? He doesn't say to them, it was your faith. He asks them, take a look. What is it that's making you so worried? What is it that's making you so scared? Have you forgotten who I am? Or do you just not believe I'm able to do the things you've seen me already do? What is it? And I think that's an important thing too, that in this, I think part of what Jesus is saying to them is, remember who I am. You know that I care about you. You know I'm powerful. Don't worry. I'm here. I'm watching. This is all under control. It's going to be okay. Even if it doesn't go the way you like, it's going to be okay. Why are you so afraid? And those words, peace, be still, I think for most of us have had a moment where those words, we've known they're not just for the storm, that they're for us. That he wasn't just speaking to the wind and the wave, he was speaking to the hearts of his disciples, to people like you and me. So when we're afraid, when we're worried, I think in both these stories, we can find a path to peace, to the place of peace, to be sure that we are eating and drinking and sleeping, taking care of ourselves physically, and preparing for the journey from where we are to where Christ is speaking to us, so that we can hear the voice he is saying. And also to be certain that even in the moments where it feels like God is not engaging, when it seems like he's not answering, that that's not the case, that he knows, he's aware, and that all he has to do is speak a few words to show that he is the one who has power over these things, that he loves us, that he's engaged, that he's watching. And I think particularly for us as a community, as a church, as we have our new pastor coming next week, I think it's an important thing to remember. As human beings, we're quick to judge and to decide whether this has been a good thing or a bad thing. Let's give it some time. Let's trust God. Let's trust that if Elijah could take 40 days to discover the place where he could hear from God, we can take at least that long as well, as we're engaging in our new transition as a community, our new place, that we can trust that God is here, that he's bringing good things. We can make sure we're rested and eating and drinking and doing well before we make decisions about how we feel about various people and one another and ourselves, and that we can wait to hear from the Lord and trust that there's peace in the midst of that. So let me have the worship team come up, and we're going to sing a song together, and then in a few moments we'll pray together as well.